One of the things I worry about in these hyper-tense, politically fraught times is to become so overwhelmed with the sound and the fury of our relentless politics so as to have little time or space for Jewish reflection. America is in crisis. The Jewish community is challenged in ways most of us have never experienced in our lifetimes, and Israel is in existential turmoil. And these are the matters that most of us constantly think about nowadays, and consequentially, it's what many rabbis, including me, address most frequently with their congregants. I don't regret it. Judaism demands that we involve ourselves in the social and moral well-being of our country and our people. And in years to come, we will continue to voice our understanding of the application of age-old Jewish values to contemporary policies and debates. And even if you disagree with our conclusions, which of course is your prerogative, rabbis still have a responsibility, in the words of Rabbi Stephen Wise, to preach not only what you want to hear, but what we believe you need to hear. At the same time, I worry that the drama, the weight, and the import of contemporary politics so dominate our every waking moment that there's little room left for the contemplation, reflection, deliberation, and rumination necessary to live full and productive lives and full and productive Jewish lives. Judaism is filled with teachings about how to stay rooted while the storms rage all around us. So I was intrigued by the recent controversy that erupted around Vincent van Gogh's last painting, Tree Roots. Have you seen that? Do you know what I mean? Anybody? Art historians tell us that Van Gogh spent most of his last conscious day, July 27, 1890, hard at work on this painting, Tree Roots. As the sun set into the mouth of the French countryside, tragically, he shot himself and died 36 hours later. He had long contended with mental health challenges. And given these circumstances, it is especially poignant that Van Gogh purportedly wrote to his brother Theo that his study of tree roots represents the human struggle for life, the frenetic effort to stay rooted while the storms rage all around us. And scholars believe that they identified the actual gnarly tree roots that Van Gogh painted in the small village of Auvers-sur-Oise, north of Paris, where Van Gogh spent his final days. It's very cool and highly fascinating to me. The painting represents and embodies the last thoughts of the great genius. And you can actually go to the place in the French countryside and see what Van Gogh saw and painted and depicted in his last waking hours. Now, almost 135 years later, the municipality of Auvers claimed the property for itself, citing the need to take it from the private owners of the land on which these tree roots exist. The property owners claim that they too want to protect the roots, and the municipality is preventing them from doing so. The French appeals court recently ruled in favor of the private owner against the municipality. And I've been trying to figure out why those tree roots are so compelling to me and so important to others that they would take the time and the money to sue one another to control the land of those gnarled tree roots. Perhaps it's the profit motive for both the municipality and the private landowner, but that only begs the question, why would so many people want to visit a small village north of Paris to look at some tangled roots in a field? Why are these roots so captivating? There's something about standing in the place where genius was expressed that creates a kind of vividness that cannot be attained by simply looking at a painting on a wall. In the field, we can imagine Van Gogh contemplating the next brush stroke. We can see him in our mind's eye. There's something of everyone in those tortured hours of that final day, in his struggle to stay rooted while the storms raged all around and within him. And there's something of the universal tragedy of life in his failed battle to weather the storm. He was only 37. Had he lived and overcome, how many more ethereal works of genius might have been bequeathed to humanity? Perhaps hundreds. Throughout all the turmoil, frustrations, and disappointments, he couldn't stop painting. He would have continued to paint on and on, because it was as if his calling didn't really belong to him. It was more that he belonged to his calling and was a servant, even a slave of his calling. Most of us will produce nothing that history will consider consequential. And that's what Van Gogh's contemporaries thought of him as well. This immense historical figure who was unrecognized during his lifetime. Scholars believe he sold one, maybe two of his paintings for a pittance. This man, who could have lived 10 lifetimes in luxury from the proceeds of one of his paintings today, couldn't even support himself. What were his contemporaries thinking? Today, people will trek halfway around the world to stand in some nondescript field and look at tangled, twisted roots because Vincent van Gogh stood there. To them, it's a kind of sacred land, hallowed ground. Why? Do you remember that line, that opening line from Dante's Inferno? In the middle of the journey of life, I found myself in a dark wood, having lost the straight path. At some point, many of us, maybe most of us, find ourselves questioning whether we have lost the straight path of life. The pressures we bear, the personal trials and tribulations, overlaid with the social chaos all around us that buffets us every day. These often so overwhelm our sensibilities that we question whether we have lost the straight path out of the dark woods of life. We find ourselves asking, what's this all for? Even if we're skilled at what we may do. Many of us will reach a point in life when we ask ourselves, what else? Deep down, we know that our purpose is not only to be good technicians, masters of the mechanics of life. Rather, we yearn to intensify our sensory capacities, to feel life, not simply to pass through or to observe life from afar, to mean something, to count for something. We crave passion and inspiration, something that will lift us up and out of the day-to-day slog and draw us nearer to the mysteries, the beauties, and the wonders of existence. in distinguishing between mere talent and surpassing genius. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer wrote that talent hits a target that no one else can hit. Genius hits a target that no one else can even see. That is the function of great art, to open up vistas that no one else can even see. In Van Gogh, we sense human capacities that go beyond our own limitations, transcending what we ourselves even imagined, and in reinforcing our intuitions of the vast, undiscovered, and untapped potential of life. But great art, as life itself, is not science. It hints, but it does not explain. The artist reveals something, tangled roots, but we must imagine the rest. That ability to awaken our powers of imagination is the greatest gift of all. Because only imagination allows us to break the chains that bind us to our own limitations. Observing the otherworldly depictions of light in the Potato Eaters or Starry Night, or so many other Van Gogh masterpieces, I'm reminded of that beautiful Talmudic teaching. Rabbi Elazar taught, when God created the light of the first day, it wasn't the light of the sun. It was a different kind of light through which human beings could see from one end of the earth to the other. But when God saw the corruptions of the generation of the flood, God feared that they would misuse this light for evil purposes. So what did God do? The Holy One hid the original light of creation, concealing it for the righteous souls of the future. Van Gogh must have found that light. By expressing it in human form, he helped us see from one end of the earth to the other, bridging the finite and the infinite, inspiring us to slip the surly bounds of earth, to trod the high, untrespassed sanctity of space, and there to touch the face of God. And in this way, those lowly tree roots set us free. In the words of that beautiful song about Van Gogh by Don McLean, now I understand what you tried to say to me, and how you suffered for your sanity, and how you tried to set them free. They would not listen. They did not know how. Perhaps they'll listen now.